Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. I'm your host, Chris Noble. And today we have an amazing guest on the show, Alexander Quinn. Now, Alexander is a starseed, channel, and consciousness explorer whose an extraordinary awakening began after a near fatal accident in 2011. Waking up in a Nashville hospital, Alexander found his perception of reality forever changed. And what followed was a series of profound ET encounters and multidimensional experiences that activated his psychic abilities and revealed his deeper galactic lineage, which we will get into today. Now, since then, Alexander has dedicated his life to understanding the starseed ascension phenomenon. This process by which awakened souls from across the cosmos are remembering who they are and why they're here during this great planetary shift. His work bridges the mystical and the practical, helping others integrate their higher consciousness into everyday life. He's also an author of a book called Star Seeds, What's It All About? And that's basically a guidebook for those who are awakening to their cosmic origins and divine life purpose. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Alexander Quinn. How are you doing today, Alexander?
Very good. It sounds like you've been doing your research on me. Do you also know, do you have my bank details and my personal address as well? You know?
Well, for the
and,
audience watching and
and if you'd like
listening.
to know what, and if you'd like to know what his personal address is, here are his bank details and his social security number as well.
Well, that's the day and age we're living in. Is there any privacy? Of course not. No, I just scooped that from your beautiful YouTube channel, which I've been following, Alexander, for quite a few years now. And, I love the work you're putting out there. You really do have a great balance of, the esoteric, the mystical, of course, the other dimensional, but you bring a lot of science, a lot of grounded, research into the situation. And I really appreciate that. So, how about for the audience to just kind of gear them up? I teased them a little bit with your story, but I would love to hear more of the details of how did you come to this awakening? What happened in 2011?
I was working in Nashville, and I was deep into the music industry, working with some quite amazing people, some of them pretty famous people, and living a kind of music industry lifestyle that was very, very different to the way that I'm living now. And I was at I don't know what you might call a celebrity soiree with loads of famous songwriters and stuff. And I was helping prep for canapes and stuff before people were turning up, because the lady that was living in that house I was dating at the time, and she asked me to get the wine glasses down. So I went up to get the wine glasses, and I was standing in my socks on a black granite kitchen surface. And as I was reaching up to the shelf, I slipped, fell, the glass smashed in my face, cut all my face open, and then I knocked myself out on the kitchen counter, woke up in a pool of blood with some of my face hanging off. I was rushed to the Vanderbilt hospital in Nashville, and they sewed my face up, sent me home. I went back to my hotel room, which was nuts thinking about it now, and started having dreams about extraterrestrials and little blue beings, and weird things started happening. And I called up my father and I said, I think I need to come home. I think something's gone wrong. I think I'm going crazy. Like I'm seeing things that I shouldn't be seeing. So my father, bless his cotton socks, came to Nashville and rescued me and put me on a plane home, came back with me. And we flew business class back to Heathrow in London. And I took a time out and started getting deep into my spirituality and kind of investigating where this was really going. And instead of, my rational, logical brain saying, no, this is weird, don't do it, you need to go back into the real world and get a job in the music industry, I said, no, I'm going to pursue this and see where this is going, because the weirdness is kind of beautiful. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. So I wanted to see where it was going, and I did, and it led me to a set of very, very weird and bizarre circumstances. But that is how it began, if that answers your question as to how the thing opened up.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I mean, obviously from a pretty horrific experience to a direction I'm sure you never saw coming, right? And
Never.
I would love to hear, what was this first ET encounter like for you? Like when you said, little green, blue beings running around, like what was your first encounter like? How did that feel for you?
Well, you know what? I just tell you something funny. I'm not your average typical Joe in the New Age spirits community. I don't really, I sometimes feel like I don't really fit in because I didn't come in at 3 years old. Oh my God, I'm so spiritual. I knew at 3 years old I was going to be doing this work. I'm so gifted. Da da da. No, this didn't happen for me until I was 30. Yeah, and some people in the New Age spiritual community say that is very late, but my great great grandmother was a survivor of the Titanic because she had a premonition that it was going to sink, and it did. And my great grandmother was one of the first astrologers in a major national newspaper to start doing astrology and talking about it. It missed my grandmother, and then my grandmother was a psychic. So it does run in the family, but I was more interested in writing songs and playing guitar and stuff like that. And so I kept dreaming about spaceships and extraterrestrials and things like that. And then one night I didn't have any money. I was broke. I was living in my godmother's basement in London, and I knew that there was spirits and things trying to get hold of me. And so I lay on my bed one night feeling very low, very depressed, very distraught, very lost. And I said, if someone is out there trying to reach me, someone to get hold of me, flash the light. And the light went off and on, and I couldn't believe it. And I said, if that's really you, flash 3 times, on, off, on, off, on, off. And so I freaked out, ran upstairs to go and speak to my godmother, who unfortunately I just saw today. She's critically ill, but that's a whole nother story. And I said, "Oh my God, I think the basement is haunted where I was living in the basement room downstairs." And so I basically, at that point, I didn't know how to go to my higher self directly and get confirmation and validation the way I do now, like when I'm working in the clinical way with clients. So I just had to use a crystal pendulum to get yes and no answers. So I picked up my crystal pendulum and I said, "Crystal pendulum, is there someone on the other side trying to get hold of me? Yes. Is it extraterrestrial? Yes. Okay. How do I contact them? I just got yes." I said, "Can you show me?" Yes. "Okay, will you show me my dream time tonight?" No. "Will you show me in my waking reality?" Yes. So I put the pendulum down, and within 24 hours of that, I remember I was sat reading everything I could about Arcturians, funnily enough, on the internet. And as I was doing that, I could not stop obsessing over spiritual churches. So I picked up my pendulum and said, "Do I need to go to a spiritual church? Will the answer be that?" Yes. "Will it help me connect to maybe a galactic being?" Yes. So I found all the spiritual churches in London in a 10-mile radius. And I went, "Do I need to go to this one? No. Do I need to go to this one? No. Do I need to go to this one? No. Do I need to go to this one? Yes. Do I need to go to it?" And I was like, "Yes, I need to go to this spiritual church because the answer will be there." Yes. Clear confirmation validation from my pendulum. So I got in my car, drove to an area of London where I would probably only ever drive through. I would probably never even stop there, parked my car in a neighborhood that I can honestly tell you I wouldn't have even felt safe even walking through. I found this little spiritual church sandwiched in between two houses. It was the weirdest thing. Walked in there, and to cut a long story short, when I walked in there, a woman said, "Oh my God, it's you." And I went, like that. "Are you talking to someone else?" He went, "It's you." And I went, Who? And she said, "I'm a medium. My name is so and so. I've been a medium for 30 years." And I was told that a younger man who would look exactly like my brother with slick back hair and glasses like you, who's incredibly handsome — I've just added that bit for fun — would walk in and would help me connect to my star family. But first, I would have to teach him how to become a medium, so that once he had learned how to become a medium, he would then learn how to become a galactic medium. And then, and then once he had learned how to become a galactic medium, he would then help me connect to my star family, but I'd have to give him something in return. So we went through this process, and then that is what happened. And then once I then realized that I could then tap into this little blue being, and then most importantly, see him, not just feel him, because anyone can feel energy, but see and feel him at the same time. I realized that I could have basic dialogue, yes and no. And then basic dialogue turned into more complicated dialogue. And then I realized I could slowly start channeling him, ask questions and get answers. And then that sentences turned into paragraphs, and paragraphs eventually turned into some of my book, and now what I do now. And then I realized, well, if I can do that, maybe I could just call him in during an interview and make it simultaneous as opposed to question and answer. And one thing led to another, and then I realized that I could bring him into client sessions, and then I could do healing and reading and remote viewing and this and that and one thing. And it's just exploration and playing with abilities and asking, I can't, how do I do this? Show me. And then he'd show me. How do I do reading? He'd show me. How do I do this? How do I do soul fractal retrieving? And then he'd show me. How do I do entity removal? And then he'd show me. So I've never had to go on a course. I've never had to read a book. I've never had to really go to too many people for help, because I went to the source. I went to the Arcturians. Tell me, show me, how do I do this? And they'd give it to me, or I'd channel it, or whatever. Because people think that spirit is separate from themselves. It's not. We are spirit. And so I'm in every day, and have been for years, checking with my Arcturian, and now Mantis and an Andromedan, who I also work with. And one thing's led to another, and I've devoted my life to it and made it my life's work, which a lot of people thought was a crazy thing to do many years ago. Because when I told my friends and family I was going to channel extraterrestrials and making a living out of it, I can tell you now, and I've said this on other interviews before, but 80 to 90% of people said, "You're nuts. Don't do this. It's never going to work out. You got your whole life ahead of you. Don't throw it away." And I said, no, I'm going to throw it away into something that feels right and take a chance. And it paid off. So that's the story in a nutshell.
Oh, that's beautiful. And, it's always that path that's going to be the one that the most people will say, that's a crazy idea, Alexander. What are you doing giving up this great music career you have and throwing it all to the ETs that, we're just coming into an awareness of right now. And now, luckily, the collective consciousness is shifting a lot. And I'm hearing even my parents and my family start asking, "Hey, Chris, I know you love ETs. Did you hear about that, Three-Eye Atlas? Or did you hear about those New Jersey drones?" Or, it's starting to become a big part of the collective awareness now. Where do you see this kind of going, Alexander, with regards to disclosure? And people like you and I are going to become less rare, hopefully, right? Is the intention that we all awaken to this extraterrestrial presence. What's your view on that? And is that going to actually happen in this reality?
Well, it is going to happen in this reality. In fact, we're going to get much closer to a version of disclosure. It won't be the type of disclosure that people want, but a version of it happening in the years between 2030 to 2035. And 2030 to 2035, and we're not far off. We have to become a frequency match for that which we wish to encounter. Otherwise, it can create issues like psychic shock. And if the Pleiadians just suddenly landed on the White House lawn, we would go from becoming Earth citizens with boundaries and countries and things like that, to suddenly becoming galactic citizens. So we wouldn't need to have certain laws. We wouldn't need to have boundaries between countries. We wouldn't need to have border lines. Suddenly, if the Pleiadians arrive, they'd bring technology with them. So we'd have to do away with petrochemical industrial complex. Suddenly we'd have to have the free energy that the black military energy industrial complex have been hiding ever since the 1940s and the 50s. And so we're not quite at the point yet that a lot of starseeds and light workers think, oh, we'll just have disclosure and it'll be fine. We're not quite ready as a civilization yet to have that, because then we'd have to do away with everything that we suddenly have now. And there would be an actual uncomfortable collapse of civilization with the way that we know it is right now. And we want it to be a smooth transition, not a chaotic collapse, although sometimes you have to have pockets of chaos that create square triangles of realignment. Yeah. And so disclosure is not something that we need to rush. You can have your own personal disclosure. I spent 4 hours with a client today teaching her how to see her Aldebaranian and Pleiadian star family, how to see them, how to channel, how to speak to them. So she had a personal disclosure. So there's collective disclosure, there's personal disclosure, where it's going. Well, I mean, a friend of mine sent me a video by Megyn Kelly, who talks about a lot of political things, and she was talking about ET stuff. So you've got like even big political commentary people now talking about ET stuff. So it's coming more and more and more into the mainstream all the time, and it will continue to go into the mainstream up until the point that it's not sensational anymore. Because if it's too sensational, it means we're not a frequency match for it yet. When we are in a relaxed state about being able to connect to it, it'll come easily. We're almost there. We're very, very close, but not just yet. So, but also, we live we're somewhere in the upper the realms of dualistic fourth astral. We're not quite Earth. Gaia is an ascended planet. She ascended in 2012 with her inhabitants almost becoming who are ascending, and so we are still living in duality, and those dualities within those paradigms are going to be ripped apart. Look at the division within America, within politics, and divisions in polarity, and how people believe in things, and where all that's going. And so with the left and the right and everything else, and so these timelines are going to be ripped apart. So they're going to be so far that eventually they won't even be able to see each other. And those who want to awaken and go on this timeline will eventually have that reality, and those who don't won't. And they will stay on an Earth-like planet and then reincarnate into other Earth timelines where they'll have to do this sort of much slower trajectory. And the people who on this trajectory who want and are excited about incarnating into this special timeline between 2012 and 2030, which is really the acceleration years before it plateaus out and we come out of the Alcyon ring, which is that photonic ring that we're going through in space, which is causing all this incredible sun energy and ascension energies and everything else, will then go on to live in that timeline, because that's a parallel reality that they've chosen to live in, and the ones that don't won't. And so some of us will go quicker than others and some won't, but everyone will eventually get there. But it really is a matter of free will. So where does free will want to go? So it's just going to really, it's like technology. Look at technology just in the last 30 years, yeah? I didn't have a mobile phone 30 years. I think I had a mobile phone 25 years ago when they first started coming out. So mobile phones are really only about 30, 35 years old, the smaller ones. And so if we're only really just talking on a little thing just in the last 30, 35 years, imagine where we're going to be in another 30 years. It's going to be, it's exponential. And consciousness is exponential as well. It's speeding up. The rate at which it is accelerating is speeding up. And so, people say, oh, it's such an exciting time to be alive. And, it almost gets boring hearing it, but it really is. Because it's going to plateau off slightly at about 2030, which a lot of people are really looking forward to, because the ascension symptoms, the ringing in the ears and the heart palpitations and the dizziness and the fatigue and the lower back pain because of root issues and the lymphatic issues because of sexual abuse and the stomach issue because of solar plexus issues and anger issue, liver problems because of anger management issues and autoimmune issues because of unresolved anger and abandonment issues because of the pancreas and so on and so forth, and all of the density that's coming out through the body at this moment in time, which people misdiagnose through egoic projection, calling it another round of psychic attack, is eventually going to be seen for what it is, as ascension symptoms that are actually coming up for density that needs to be released, because you can't carry your bags into an ascended planet. You can't carry that dense, heavy energy into an ascended planet. You've got to leave it behind, but it has to be reviewed and seen and experienced to be dismissed. And so there's hurdles and there's hoops and there's things we've got to jump over and walk through in the physical body and the consciousness. And your consciousness has an emotional body and a physical body and a mental body, and we have to walk and jump through those hoops to be able to reevaluate where we are, because you can't go to a job and carry out the new job in that consciousness having not realized where you've actually traveled from A to B to get there and what you've learned along the way. So it requires this thing that star seeds and light workers, not all of them, but a lot of them hate. It's called doing the work. The energy at the moment in time is not happening to people, it's happening for them. And so when people are saying, oh my God, I can't work this job anymore, I'm just so tired, this energy is not working for me, this is so awful, I can't believe I'm having to go through this, because the energy is trying to say you shouldn't be going through this anymore, because you shouldn't be in that relationship or in that job. It is trying to show you where you're not a frequency match for that part of your existence reality anymore, by showing you that this does not feel good, stop doing it. It's trying to show you where your preferences are at this moment in time in your holographic matrix reality, if something feels good and if something feels bad, quite simplistically. Yeah, so it's just going to keep expanding and expanding and expanding, and people showing them where their resistances are and where their preferences are and how to ascend and how not to ascend, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. So well said, Alexander. It's these ascension symptoms that, I mean, we were just talking about this offline before we recorded. I mean, I'm feeling it today. We all feel it at different increments, different moments. And it's more just how we want to deal with it, how we want to work with it. And like you said, releasing a lot of the baggage is the only way that we're going to be light enough to ascend into these higher frequential realities. And so I think it's challenging, but it comes with a lot of hope for me and a lot of optimism, because like you said, it is kind of simple, actually. We just got to do the work, which is to release these limiting beliefs, programs, traumas, and all these things that we carry with us this lifetime, multiple lifetimes. And you were mentioning earlier these cycles of time. You know, we started a massive ascension in 2012. We're still going through that. You know, the ancients talk about this all the time. You have the Mayans with their old calendar. You have the Indian Vedas with their, cycles of consciousness, and same with Plato in ancient Greece. We have the age of the zodiac that talk about these rise and fall of consciousness. You know, I'm really curious to know, with your perspective from the extraterrestrial connections that you have, what were in ancient times, were people more aware of, because we can see right now, we're all on our phones, we're all busy with our jobs, we're quite distracted, obviously, from what's really going on. I feel in ancient times we weren't as distracted. Do you think we're more aware of these energies in these cycles from ancient times?
Are we more aware now? Is that what you mean?
Like, no, were we more aware in the past, I guess, is the question. Because it seems that when I've been to places like Egypt, or when I look at a lot of these ancient texts, they predicted exactly what's happening right now.
Well, basically, yeah, because we're not really in harmony with the Earth cycles right now. I mean, look what we're doing to the Earth. Humanity is not really friends of the Earth. Not really. We're learning to be able to work with the Earth better, but we're not really working with the natural rhythms and cycles of the Earth. Because the body is the land and the land is the body. And, there's a lot of illness still within humanity, disease and all sorts of things, pain in the mental body as well. And so humans on an ascended planet will learn to become more harmonious with Gaia and her grids. But we have come from we are known as the masters of limitation. We are working from the most limited consciousness to break out of that, to be using free will to connect back to source. And so, yes, all of those civilizations, even before Lemuria, when we had the seed races, and then Lemuria and Atlantis, and there were various Atlantises, and then there were lots of different. This was going to be the sixth extinction event, but luckily we've made it. We passed that marker, and so we are slowly coming back into a harmony with Gaia and through our understanding of her cycles, but we're pretty far away from it, in my humble opinion. We've still got a very long way to go, because if we were truly working in harmony with her grids and the land, we would be able to do away with a lot of monetary, a lot of famine problems, disease. But unfortunately, there's a lot of technologies that are remaining hidden on black operations, and there are a lot of, shall we say, industrialists who are deliberately keeping it. I mean, look at planes. Yeah, that's junk. Yeah, look, a jet engine was created what 100 years ago, 150 years ago, and people are still flying around on air turbulence. So I'm going to get on a plane to fly. We've got anti-gravity technology now that governments are holding back.
I've always thought that, Alexander. It's like, how is the cell phone, like you mentioned earlier, advanced so quickly, and yet it's the same design since the 50s that we're still using today.
Yeah,
that makes no sense to me.
No. I mean, we have the technology, but it's being held back because it's profitable to keep us in a state of where we are. I mean, look at all the people that invented the electric, the car that ran on hydrogen, yeah, the car that ran on water. They all mysteriously suicided themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so many examples you hear of the Royal Raymond Rife, even back in the early 1900s, and he was able to eradicate a lot of illnesses using sound because his microscope could go so deep. He could find out the resonant frequency of these different organisms and just vibrate them out using sound. And that was a huge issue for the pharmaceutical industry. And you see it again almost 100 years later. There was a TED Talk like 10 years ago of a gentleman who also vibrated leukemia cells out of someone's body using sound and resonant frequency.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, cancer is very profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a I don't know how it works, but there are certain cancer drugs. I know in certainly in your country. Oh, sorry, in America. You're not in America right now, but there are certain countries where there's an actual scheme where the more those cancer drugs that you can initiate into clients, you actually get you make more profit on them. So it forms. We all know this, but big pharma is profitable on keeping people sick and ill. We'll give you something that'll mask the issue, but it'll have side effects.
Yeah, it's like the whole industry is designed around us being ill and not feeling healthy and not ever being well.
Yeah.
And you were touching on it earlier, Alexander, but I really truly believe that at least 98% of all the things that are currently wrong with us can be traced back to an energetic source, if you will.
Of course we can.
Right?
Root issues: mother wounding, father wounding, blood, immune system, autoimmune system, feet, legs, bowels, and the teeth. Sacral issues: creativity, sexuality, lymphatic, breast, reproductive system. Sense of self, personal power issues, disempowerment issues, abandonment issues, the pancreas, anger issues. The solar plexus is also linked to the skin. Grief is linked to the lungs. The throat is hormonal. The pineal is chemical. Yeah, so everything can be linked back to. So if you've got issues on the left hand side of your body, it's because you're walking through your mother wounding. If you've got issues on the right hand side of your body, it's because you're walking through your father wounding. Yeah, inner child issues are going to create issues linked to fear, usually related to abandonment issues and fear of rejection and fear of judgment, things like that. So what your body holds onto emotionally sometimes has to push through as something physical at a later date to show you that you haven't released it, and vice versa. Yeah, look what happens when your emotional body can force a physical reaction. My partner loves watching rom-coms, and when it gets to that big point where they have the big kiss at the end, she starts crying. Yeah, because something is touched her. Yeah, but sometimes you can cry because something bad happens. Yeah, the emotional body can force the physical body into a state in order to show you that you're either getting confirmation or you have not been listening.
It's just that listening to your body, something I've been learning more and more throughout my life is it always has the answers, and whether this is getting into intuition or sometimes to me it gets a little muddy because for me it's just like truth. It's just the answer that I'm searching for, and it's usually a feeling, but it's my body. It's always the first thing to know what's going on, and I think we've been disempowered by the powers that were in taking the power out of us to know what our health needs or what we need for our own health and relying on an external source, right?
Well, yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, we've been conditioned to not listen to ourselves. It's as simple as that. We're conditioned to a government will govern us. We have to do what they say because they know best for our safety. We're conditioned that we have to go. We have to take a pill or a cream, and we have to believe that is good for us. And you have to get up and go to work and have a 9 to 5, and you have to do this and you have to do that. And there are all these societal conditionings that people believe are real. And so when my Arcturian told me that you're going to channel extraterrestrials for a living and have lots of happiness and love and abundance out of it, it was so far out of the conditioning that I had been taught to believe that was real that I almost couldn't I almost couldn't bridge the gap. But my Arcturian said, stick in there and just do it. You have to release the rationale and logic of the egoic conditioning to actually jump out the box and actually follow your soul's direction.
Isn't that one of the most amazing things is really to live the most fulfilling life? I feel like in this current reality is to fully express oneself, to be fully authentic. And what does that really mean? It means probably having to disconnect from a lot of societal stories, programs, structures, things that we think the amount of things that I think a lot of us just do because we think we're supposed to versus, well, do you actually want to? Is that actually, your desire?
But usually any block spiritually or psychically is usually always linked to conditioning, usually within a community itself, fear or trauma. Usually always those three things, but usually the first two.
Yeah, and we see it, and it's everywhere. Look, I want to move on quickly here because we only have a little bit more time left on this episode, and I could talk to you for hours about this stuff. So I wanted to literally, and so I have a question.
Oh
Oh no, my favorite topics. Maybe it's why I created a podcast in the first place. Yeah, so there's something that I saw on your channel very, very recently. You're talking about Three Eye Atlas. Now, we were talking earlier about disclosure. This is obviously a big topic that's in the public sphere. Our sister channel, Portal to Ascension, they did a great episode with Avi Loeb from Harvard talking
yeah.
about this.
I actually rang him. I've got his number.
Oh, amazing.
I rang him and I left him an answer message to come on my channel, but I haven't heard from him.
Well, I put an extra word into Neil, and he might be able to hook you up because, as we know, Avi's got a great perspective, and but there's a lot of channelers out there having their own perspective on that, and I would love for you to weigh in here, Alexander. What on earth is Three Eye Atlas, and what's, I guess, as we're recording this early November of 2025, what's your latest opinion of what it is?
I put out 2 videos on my YouTube channel. The first one was a channel message from the Arcturians that basically said that this is something that came from our galactic center. It is holding non-physical consciousnesses, which are angelic and galactic. We already know it's behaving chemically in a very, very strange way. And it's coming into the elliptical plane on a 5-degree elliptic, which is incredibly rare. We know that it's coming from a trajectory from a special from the WOW frequency that was actually originated back in 1977, going back to a place that is from a specific power frequency source that would be akin to what a fairly large nuclear power plant would put out for it to travel that amount of distance to come to our galaxy. And it's going to go off into the Leo constellation and become transdimensional. It has already gone behind the sun and refueled, and it's already changed color twice. When it went next to the sun, it went on a thermal radiating, you were to measure it through thermal radiation, it became hotter than the surface of the sun as it went next to it. And what I channeled is that it was actually energizing, it was actually fueling from the sun as it went past. But when it went past Mars, I remote viewed that a beam of light actually came down off it and hit a pyramid structure on Mars. Now, I don't know if it was in the Sedona region, but my understanding is that it was actually, it was not taking a reading, it was putting something there. It was initiating something there. And I haven't got that far into what it is yet, but I will look into it. So, and it's now showing that it is now going slightly beyond its gravitational circuit past the sun, and it is course correcting very, very slightly, just by a few degrees. So in my humble opinion, is it intelligent? Very likely more intelligent than it is just a random piece of rock. It's only the third ever kind that we've ever had passing through our solar system, but isn't it interesting that it's only ever the third kind of its kind that we've ever had pass going into our solar system, and yet we've had those three in moderately recent years. And in moderately only recent years, our solar system has actually gone up a couple of fractions in terms of its energy frequency, and yet our solar system is now a frequency match to be able to allow certain vehicles like this to actually come in and for us to actually even be able to view them. But they've actually always been there. Well, let's just say we're going into another tunneled parallel reality whereby these crafts are an energetic frequency match for us to be able to actually become consciousness of them in the first place. And so that they've always been there, but oh wow, we've just suddenly had three. Well, they've always been there in other realities of Earth, but Earth is now in the reality where they're going to be a lot more of them. And the solstice is going to be on December 19th, and that's when it's going to be closest or almost closest to Earth, which is an incredible synchronicity. Because what my Arcturian says is that there's going to be lots of different lights in the sky around that time when other ships are going to make themselves visible. So there's going to be a lot of what you might call New Jersey sightings and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I would say just look up to the sky because there's going to be a light show, baby.
Oh, that sounds like Christmas I can get excited for. That's that's going to be fantastic. Look, there's just so much here. I want to be mindful of our time, Alexander. This is, I think, a fantastic moment now to bring in maybe your Arcturian and just do a general channeled message for the collective. We are living in crazy times. I also share the enthusiasm and hopefulness and excitement for this new world. I just know there's also a lot of people out there who are maybe freaking out a bit more and might need some reassurance or some words of wisdom. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love to hear from your Arcturian counterpart.
You are coming to a point in your civilization at this moment in time whereby it is becoming almost impossible for you to see where you are a frequency mismatch for your holographic matrix reality at this moment in time, caused by further fatigue and resistances to your experience reality at this moment in time. And therefore, that which is a frequency mismatch is going to now become so obvious to you that it will almost become unpalatable. And for those of you who continue to wanting to hold on to that which is a frequency mismatch, or a michi-machi, as some of you would say on Earth, it is going to become more increasingly uncomfortable. And so you are a piece of Source. Source is in you. When Source was in creation to know more of itself, it sent many pieces and parts of itself out into creation to know itself through you or through what your individual egoic selves think is your free will. And yet Source is working through you as what you designate your soul. the part of you which knows what is happening through your ego, which only knows what your ego knows what is happening, but your soul, shall we say, knows why it is happening. And so as source becomes a greater embodiment beyond your egoic part of yourself and your physicality, more of that embodiment is going to push through your templates to show you that which you are not in alignment for, creating, shall we say, what is more obviously a resistance in your reality, making it more obvious. And so it is not a punishment. It is merely showing you where you want to push yourself into realignment beyond where your rational, logical minds are being confronted with where fear says it cannot be done and where your heart knows it can. And so we leave you with this message to follow your hearts, because that is where your love, money, and preferences are, and your soul's journeys. The kiiga shashaka ndondwa the id the shaka dondwa dia ndonga shaka da da.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. I always need a moment after those.
Yeah. Well, imagine how I feel. I'm
My
gonna go have a cigarette now.
there it is. See, this is the channeling look that not everyone knows about. So, afterwards we still like to be human. It's
Yeah, human.
whatever that is.
Being human is difficult, because it's when you dream at night, that and you're actually in your non-physical state, or should I say, when you're not in your body, when you are as soul, that is your actual natural state. Right now, the soul is dreaming, being in a physical body. This is not our natural reality. This is an illusion. That's what I'll say about that for now.
The movie, the video game, if you will, the reality that this is, what I find interesting, that we kind of have this amnesia when we come in. Now, a lot of us can work through that, but I've always suspected that this dream that we're in, this I look at it as a game, is also, the challenge of being human. The reason it's so hard to be human is because our souls wanted the highest expert level to play this game for more fulfillment, if you will. When the challenge is even higher, the reward at the end is also that much more spectacular.
It's creating an entire planet of ascended masters, because for souls to come down here and work out of such limitation is going to, don't forget, a lot of the souls that come here are planet initiators. They've ascended other planets. Yeah, if you can imagine, so a lot of the souls that come here are planet ascenders. They've done this before in other places.
Wow. Feel kind of honored to be on this planet Earth right now with all this.
There's a lot of people who would rather not be here right now.
I know. And if any of those are watching and listening, we love you, and we know it's hard. And also, like we were talking about on this episode today, there's a lot to look forward to. So just hang in there a little bit longer, and I think we're going to see a very, very, very different reality that, let's say, resonates a lot more with the soul's foundational frequency, which is love, ultimately, just love. Alexander, thank you so much for today. Where can people find you, connect with you, get more of your information?
Well, YouTube, Alexander Quinn Starseed, and my book is everywhere, basically. Just go on Amazon, and I say what I say on every interview. You don't need me. You don't need my book. You don't need my YouTube channel. You don't need anything I say. What you really need is to learn what I've done, to go direct. Cut Alexander Quinn out, cut the middleman out, and go direct to source. Go direct to your star family. Yeah, they're the ones who can help you. I'm just a cheeky little permission slip that's giving you a little bit of advice along the way, but you don't need me.
That's beautiful and empowering, right? Because I think, especially when we're newer on the awakening journey, it's easy to seek outside of ourselves because it's such a confusing, crazy journey. And how could we possibly have the answers? But of course, we do, and they're always within us.
They are. They truly are.
That's beautiful. I'm going to take you off stage for now, Alexander. Just stay on for a moment after we record because I'd love to say a couple words to debrief here. But wow, what an amazing episode! What an incredible experience! Thank you so much to Alexander today for being on the show. I've got a lot to process after this episode, so I know when I'm processing things, I'm not the most articulate. So I'm going to sign off here on this episode. Let me know in the comments below. How do you feel after feeling Alexander's channeling, the incredible words of wisdom, and just the energies in general right now? Let us know. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And of course, you can connect with us on Ancient Mysteries Unearthed if you want to spend some time next year traveling some sacred sites with us. We're going to be going to Egypt in September of 2026 to connect, to do all the amazing things that you can do in Egypt with regards to the extraterrestrial connections and, of course, our soul and our consciousness connections, as well as if you're a practitioner out there that wants to use sound and music in your practice. I've just launched a therapeutic music library using a lot of 432 hertz music and binaural beats, solfeggio frequencies, things like that. Check out the link in the description below if you want to add that to any of your projects or any of your client sessions. Otherwise, most importantly, like and subscribe, everybody. Check out another episode, and please look into all of the things that Alexander is doing. I've been following him for years. He's an incredible soul. He's got so much wisdom to share, and he's a hilarious guy too, and I really appreciate that about him. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. We'll catch you in the next episode. Until next time.